All right, before we jump into today's video, I did want to let you know that at the time of you guys watching this, I'm either in the air flying or have already landed. I am traveling for the rest of the week and into early next week. So this video was recorded, well, tonight, but last night for you guys, March 12th, going over the NBA slate for March 13th. So we are missing a few things. We don't have a recap of last night. We don't have all the player prop lines out, not even all of the lines out for the games for March 13th games, but I did want to get a video out and do my best. Instead of just skipping a day because it would be tough or inconvenient, I wanted to grind and get this video out. So hope you guys can appreciate that and trust that we did the best we could here. Like I said, we're going to be traveling for the next week or so. We're still going to get content out. It may look a little bit different, but just bear with me because, again, we're trying our best out here. Very excited to be able to do some road videos and stuff like that, but just wanted to kind of give you a little forewarning for the next few days, as well as this video as to, yeah, things might be a little bit different, still get content out, might be a little bit different. So hopefully you guys appreciate that we're still grinding even on the road. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is March 13th. Well, I explained to you that it's actually March 12th, but it's March 13th as you watch this, and we have a decent-sized NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, we're going to go through each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my lean on the spread. I'll give you my lean on the total, talk about any player props that we like as well within the game. But as always, if you do want to fade me and do the opposite of what I'm saying here, keep an eye on the pinned comment for all of my final plays. That is where those will live. We don't have a recap for last night because it's still last night as I record this. And we don't have a recap on the ride of the day either, so we'll try and play some catch up in the next couple videos. But I did just want to be honest and transparent that we're recording this while there are a bunch of games still going on the night before, so just keep that in mind. But the good news is we don't need to spend much time on recaps. Let's go ahead and jump right into game number one on today's slate. First, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you appreciate us grinding even when we're on the road on vacation. Smash that like button out the park. But let's start off with Detroit taking on Toronto in this spot. This is an interesting one to me because Toronto has been a team, and I've said it over and over again as we've looked at Toronto as of late. They're a team that I just can't really trust, right? But I don't like Detroit, and who does like Detroit? Now, they've covered in 5 of the last 10 games, 6 of the last 10 games, so I mean, that's a positive. Not winning many games, but when they're covering games, they're getting a lot more points than the 2.5, right? Like, I don't necessarily trust them minus the 2.5 points. So though there are those injuries still glaring on the Toronto side of things, Quickly is probable in this one, which is a huge one. But Barrett, Trent's questionable, but Barrett, Portal, and Barnes all out. I'm still going to lean towards Toronto because I don't know. I just can't put my hard-earned bread on the Pistons as favorites. You know what I mean? So whether or not that becomes a final play, keep an eye on the pinned comment. But I just cannot seem to get myself on the Pistons side of things overall. In terms of the total here, we're looking at a 233.5 total. This one's up there. I do think this has a fast pace to it. Does it get to the number? We hope so, because I lean slightly towards the over. Both these teams, absolute garbage cans when it comes to stopping anybody in transition, and they can actually score the rock pretty decently in transition as well. So if this game takes a turn for transitional basketball, hell, this probably is going to hit 240. So slight lean towards the over in this spot as well. When it comes to player props, like I mentioned, we are recording this the night before, so nothing, not nothing, but we don't have every prop out there right now. I wouldn't touch anything on the Toronto side of things. I do think you're going to see some quickly inflated lines, and then with all of those other guys out, I don't really love that spot. Maybe, Gary Trent Jr. is questionable. We can consider some of his looks, because I do think that he's going to get a little bit more volume with no RJ Barrett and that type of thing, but other than that, nothing really on the Toronto side of things is enticing me. One thing I don't mind could be taking a peek here at Cade Cunningham over 1.5 three-pointers made. We're going to see where the juice comes out on that. Right now, looking like it's right around, this is the night before, right? Minus 146 on Caesars. That's juicy as all hell, but he's hit this in 9 of his last 10, and he's hit it in 2 straight games against the Toronto Raptors, both of those games coming this season. So if we can get good odds on that one, we're probably not going to place it till tomorrow. We'll see where it comes out there, but I don't mind that spot for him. Next up, we have Orlando taking on Brooklyn here. Right now, Orlando 7-point favorites. Total sitting at 204.5. I'm sounding the psycho alert alarm here. I just think it's too many points. Let me make this clear. I'm not backing Brooklyn with this lean here. I just do think it's way too many points for Orlando to be laying in this spot. even with, if you look at Brooklyn in their last 7 games here, they've covered that number 6.5 or 7 in 6 of their last 10 and in 7, or excuse me, 6 of their last 7 and in 7 of their last 10. So they do have, a track record to that number. Have they played anybody, legit as of late? A banged up Cleveland, Charlotte, Detroit, a banged up Philly, Memphis, Atlanta. I guess you could say no. But last time these two teams played, Brooklyn got smashed by Orlando. That was in Orlando as well. I don't really think that, Brooklyn gets smashed by them again. Again, if you're on the, the Orlando side of things, I get it. I feel like a lot of things point towards Orlando winning this game. I just don't know if I love that number. Now, if you want to say, okay, well, check this out, Ev, right? Like, they've covered that line against, what was it, Detroit? Actually, it was a Utah, Detroit, Charlotte, and Washington. I believe those are the 4 games in a row that they're like, yeah, we can beat up on these bad teams. So, yeah, I get that spot, but to me, it just seems like too many points to be comfortable with. And we're talking leans here. I'm not telling you this can definitely be a final play, but 7 points seems a little bit too much to give Brooklyn. Cam Johnson should be coming back as well. And in terms of Brooklyn's last game, they were 6.5-point dogs against Cleveland, right? They won by nearly 20 points, so say what you want about that. In terms of a total here, both these teams playing super slow. Last 10 games in the NBA here, Orlando, second slowest team in terms of pace, and Brooklyn, the 4th slowest team in terms of pace. So obviously, we're looking at a slow-paced game here, and I don't really see an advantage offensively for either one of these teams. Like, I don't think they're going to have an easy time scoring, but are you going to catch me laying an under to 204.5? Nah, man, that is just a little bit too low for me, right? So I'm going to lean towards the over. And honestly, because it is so low, there's kind of a decent chance that I do pull the trigger on that, as weird as that may sound. Now, from a player prop perspective here, Dorian Finney-Smith over 14.5 points, rebounds, and assists. It's been trending. It's looked good. Bad matchup, and Cam Johnson may be coming back. But if Cam Johnson doesn't get the go, I still don't mind Dorian Finney-Smith over 14.5 PRA. If Cam Johnson does play, I'd probably pass on this one or even consider an under depending on where that line comes out. But, right now he's questionable. He may be coming back. If he doesn't get the go, I like that DFS spot there for Finney-Smith. All right, next up, we have the Pacers taking on the Bulls. Pacers still in action right now. About 6 minutes left in the 4th quarter. They're up by 6 against the Thunder. Regardless of how that game turns out, I do think I'm on the Bulls in this spot. This is a Pacers team, so they will be on a back-to-back as you're watching this video. They've only covered in back-to-back situations in 18.2. Yes, you heard that correctly. 18.2% of games this season. Chicago, in rest advantage situations, they've covered in 60% of games. So you do like to see that if you are on the Chicago side of things, like I am. In terms of injuries here, you do have Craig. He's kind of the only injury to note. But keep an eye on that injury report because Indiana's coming off a back-to-back. There could be some injuries there as well. So we'll see what that line comes to. But as of right now, night before, I don't mind catching 4 points with the Bulls in a spot that's a huge bounce back for them. Like, say what you want about Indiana, but they've played the Clippers and Dallas, and this Indiana team is the worst team that they've played in 3 games, like, to some degree, right? And I know the Pacers people are going to be like, well, we've beat Dallas. Like, I get it, but for the record, I do think that the Dallas Mavericks in a 7-game series against Pacers would take it, but I don't have the track record on my side, right? So I'm not willing to argue that to the death. But my point here being more or less the back-to-back situation. Like I said, only 18% of games the Pacers have covered in their back-to-backs here. So I do think it's a tough spot for them, meaning I'm going to lean towards Chicago. And again, Chicago just got blown out. I think that they come in here saying, okay, you know what? We got to be fired up. We got to go do our thing. Let's see what we got here. In terms of player props, Indiana's weaknesses are going to come at the paint here. Chicago is actually a decent sort of paint defense as of late in the last 10 games, which bodes well for Chicago as well because Indiana in the last few games, they've been scoring in the paint like you read about. On the season, actually, most points in the paint this season, and then the 8th most over their last 3 games. If Chicago can limit that, that's great. But on the inverse, Indiana's allowing plenty of points in the paint. On the season, the most points in the paint allowed. When they're at home, most points in the paint allowed, and then the 5th most points in the paint allowed over the last 3 games. That means that Big Vooch could have a decent game here. I would throw DeMar DeRozan your way again, but I feel like his line has just been so inflated, it's tough to continue to trust him. So I think I'm going to look at Big Vooch for some player props here, whether it's points plus rebounds or points alone. I definitely could see him banging down there a decent amount. So I like him in terms of player props. Keep an eye on the pinned comment. We don't have any lines out right now, so we'll update you with those. And obviously I'm tweeting out my plays as well. The graphics might not be there as we're on vacation, but we'll try and tweet out as much as we can as well. All right, Miami taking on Denver. This is a pretty interesting game because we have a Denver team that is obviously a great team, but they're on the road, and I've told you guys kind of all year long, right? Like, that is a different Denver team. This is the first of a decent amount of road games for them, so I definitely don't love this spot. The one thing is, it's kind of a weird spot for Miami, too. One, I guess they played at home against Washington and took an L, so they should be fired up, but they have this home game, and then they go on a road trip, so are they looking like dreading for, this is like okay, we have Denver, the returning champions, the reigning champions coming into town, then we go on a road trip. Like, that's kind of a sucky situation for them as well, right? So both these teams kind of in a crappy spot. Jimmy Butler's probable with an illness. I would say, and Tyler Hero's still out. If Jimmy Butler plays, I actually think I lean towards the Heat slightly in this one. I could be convinced of Denver, to be completely honest. How can you really bet against a team that is just as good as they are? But again, on the road, they just haven't been the same, and they've played a bunch of home games as of late. I think 7 of their last 10 games have been at home for a team that's not that great on the road. Like, I don't love their spot now going to play against a decent, gritty Miami team, right? But again, I don't really want to argue that one to the death. Like, I would say, okay, you know what? I see it. Like, Denver has dominated Miami dating back to, obviously, the finals and whatnot. But, like, this is a Miami team that can kind of hang with anybody if they click. They need Jimmy Butler to do it. So keep an eye on that pinned comment, guys. I could have, maybe I don't have the cojones to pull the trigger on that, but it is a lean as of right now. In terms of a total here, when these two teams have played, they're actually 5-5 to the under. The one game they've played this season was a 103-97 game. I think this one stays under as well. In fact, I don't think the Heat can beat or stay close to the Heat, stay close to the Nuggets if this isn't a low-scoring game. So I'm going to lean towards the under ever so slightly as well. And then from a player prop perspective, I don't see enough available options as of right now. I see Jokic, Murray, Butler, and Bam. So, like, they're taking the 2 best players on each team, throwing player props. And neither one of those guys really interest me as of right now. I could be convinced of Jimmy Butler over 0.5 threes. There's something about when he plays Denver, he's done that in, I want to say, 7 straight games against Denver. So, Butler likes to throw a couple in there against his team, but Denver's a really good perimeter defense. So that probably stays as I lean, to be completely honest. And by the way, guys, before we do move on to the rest of the games, comment vacay in the comments. I think that's spelled V-A-C-A-Y. But spell it however the hell you want to. If you do appreciate the grind that we're doing this video late at night because we're going to be getting up. I'm literally getting up in, let's see, like 4 hours to fly. And then we're going to do some vacation, videos just like this as well. Waking up early on vacation, probably a little, feeling from the night before type of thing. But comment vacay if you appreciate the grind. I love this stuff, man, and you guys have made it possible. So I consider it like a blessing and an absolute, like, I don't take it for granted at all. So I'm not here bragging that I'm grinding. We just can admit, man to man here, that it is going to be a grind doing this on vacation. But hey, we're in Punta Cana and we got the videos out, right? So let's keep that train rolling. Comment vacay if you made it this far into the video. All right, Memphis taking on Charlotte. We don't have to spend too much time on this game. I think it's going to be a pretty sloppy game here, as would the total project as well. But Memphis in a battle right now with Wizards, kind of going back and forth with 5 minutes left in the game. So they will be on a back-to-back. Charlotte coming off of a loss against Detroit. They were 5-point dogs. They lose that game by, I think it was 17 points, 15 plus, whatever it was. So Charlotte not in the best place right now. Both these teams' injury reports are crazy long. Which is just, expected at this point. Like, literally, Memphis' injury report is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 names long before the back-to-back comes into play, right? Like, the game's still going on. That is crazy. So they have more guys on their injury report than like rosters have. So I don't like them on a back-to-back situation. I'm going to lean towards Charlotte, but that ain't going to be something that makes its way to a final play. I can almost guarantee that as of right now. And then from a total perspective, similar to the Brooklyn and Magic game, I'll lean towards the over because it is such a low number, and this is a Memphis team. They're on a back-to-back. I don't think that their defense is going to be there, and Charlotte's defense actually hasn't been all that bad, but again, we're not asking for them. If their defense isn't good, which it isn't like a good defense, 205 should be doable. We just have to hope that the offenses can do anything in this spot. But again, we probably don't touch this game with a 10-foot pole. No player props interest me either. All right, next up, we have the Pelicans taking on the Cavs in this one. Pelicans laying 7 points, total at 217.5. Some injuries to note here. Donovan Mitchell may play in this one. Evan Mobley, I believe, is out. Dean Wade is questionable, and Max Strus is out as well. No major injuries to note on the New Orleans side of things. This is a Cleveland team that obviously they've been banged up, dropped to third in the Eastern Conference. When they're injured, it's tough, and Evan Mobley is a big piece there. And New Orleans playing decent basketball. They've won and covered in 3 straight games as well. I don't think I want to get in front of that train right now, especially at home, so I'm going to lean towards New Orleans. That number may be a little bit too big, so maybe this is a spot in which we can mix in some sort of a same-game parlay or something and knock that number down a little bit, mix it with some player props, because I don't mind taking a peek at Brandon Ingram's assists. 5.5, also a high number, but he's hit it in 2 straight games against against Cleveland, and he's been hitting that number like crazy as of late, coming off a 10-assist game last game out there against Atlanta. On the season, he's hit 6 or more assists in 59% of games. I also don't mind Donovan Mitchell's assist line. He's hit the over there in 77% of games this season at 4.5, and you might be thinking, oh, well, with Garland on the floor, no, it doesn't matter. 79% of games with Garland on the floor, he hits it. The one concern is I don't love the matchup for Donovan Mitchell, right? But I do think that this is a decent New Orleans defense that could make it a little bit difficult, I guess, in this spot for Donovan Mitchell to put up some big numbers, especially coming off of, being out for a while. So if he plays, I could be persuaded by, and by the way, Donovan Mitchell has killed multiple times the Pelicans in the past, right? So that's kind of why I'm looking at this saying, okay, you know what, maybe they try and swarm him and he gets more assists. But guys, I'll keep you guys posted in the pinned comment. I wouldn't mind taking a peek at either one of those numbers, but if we can do some sort of a same-game parlay with maybe those guys involved, knock the line down a little bit on all of those props, including making this spread line, 3.5, something like that, or even just Pelicans money line, I do think that I could be entertained by that. Now, this total is sitting at 217.5. It's a low number. I know I just gave a few overs from player props perspectives, but I think I'm going to lean towards the under in this spot. These two teams have a track record of going over. The last 2 games, the last 2 times they've met, they've gone over, but only one of those was this season, and it went barely over the mark. So it was a 225 total, finished at 227. That was with the Pelicans pulling away, and that was also very important to note here, before the Cavs defense got decent. Now, the Cavs still kind of on the fences here because of the injuries they've had, but their defense has come a long way. So if both teams can come in with a defensive mindset, I really don't mind taking a peek at that under, even though that is a low number. All right, Dallas taking on the Warriors. That number 7.5 is just staring us in the face saying, are you going to do it? Because this Dallas team has been cruising, right? 3 straight games here. They've covered the mark in all of those games. And this Warriors team is without Steph Curry. Now, they have a win, coming off a win, right? Okay, it was to the Spurs. You beat them by 10. Very good. You lost to the Spurs the night before, right? Or 2 nights before, whatever it was. This is a team that Steph Curry, and I'm not dropping any jaws here or breaking any news, Steph Curry fuels, and he is the cog that keeps it going. They don't have him. I'm not going to get caught betting on the Warriors without Steph Curry. So give me the Mavs in this spot here. 7.5 points is a lot, but, it has a chance of being a final play. From a player prop, actually, we'll start with a total here before we get into player props. From a total perspective, I do think that line's actually a little bit higher than I would expect. I think this one finishes with a decent amount of points being scored, but more or less in the 232 to 236 range. So really ever so slightly lean towards the under from me in this spot. Now, from a player prop perspective, I do think that, Chris Paul's number, and a lot of people are liking to bet on him and everything like that, I do think it's going to be super inflated. 1, no Steph Curry. 2, last game against the Spurs, he went for 19 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. I don't mind taking a peek at his under PRA, even taking a peek at his under assists. I think it got bumped down to 7.5, so maybe, that not being the best spot there. But yeah, I don't mind his under PRA. I don't think I'm racing, to the book to to place it just because, you know, he is such a talented player and he is going to have that minutes bump with Steph coming back. But let's be honest, like, even, you know, without Steph Curry on the season earlier, it's not like he was killing this line. Without Steph in this season, he's only hit that over 2 of 4 games, and one of those overs was by a half of a, you know, stat. He finished at 26 PRA. So I mean, that last game is more of an outlier to me than anything, and he was playing a terrible defense in San Antonio. Dallas, not the best defense, but not as bad as San Antonio. All right, Portland taking on Atlanta. This is not a game that I'm looking forward to watching or betting, to be completely honest. Portland right now, 1.5-point dogs. You might be thinking, why is that the case? But Sadiq Bey now out for a year. Johnson is questionable. Trae Young is, I believe, out in this one as well. So tons of injuries on the Atlanta side of things here. And, you know, just, I guess for what it's worth, this is a line that kind of scares me because you might gut reaction be like, whoa, give me the Hawks, right? This Trailblazers team stinks. Why is it at 1.5? Right? There's more to that. There's plenty of stuff that hasn't come out about this game yet because, again, we are literally looking at this the night before, so that's definitely worth noting. But either way, I'll lean towards the Hawks, but it's a little bit scary with that line. Total at 218.5. I got to lean towards the over here in this spot. Not saying that the Hawks are, you know, crushing it to this line or anything like that. Like, they've definitely slowed down when it comes to pace. Like, this is a team that once was the fastest team in basketball. They're now a bottom 10 team in terms of pace, but I don't think that Portland's defense transition-wise is going to be able to even slow them down at all, and asking for 220 just doesn't seem like all that much. From a player prop perspective, there is a bunch of injuries that we're waiting on in this spot, so nothing really that I'm looking at or I want to note as of just yet. All right, no player props already in this game, obviously, because this game hasn't even or it is actually has tipped off. It's like midway through the first here. But Kings taking on the Lakers in this one. Kings are playing the Bucks right now at the time of recording. And I don't love the Kings on a back-to-back, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm loving the Lakers position here either. I am going to lean towards Lakers because of that Kings back-to-back, but the Kings are caught in like a hard place here. Do they focus on, you know, a big, intense game like the front end of a back-to-back in Milwaukee, or do they save themselves and kind of focus on the Lakers, a team that's within their conference? I'm not quite sure. Both these games should have some sort of weight to them. I believe that they should be leaning towards, obviously, this Lakers game, but I believe Keegan Murray is not playing in this one, if I'm not mistaken, the game as of right now. So, you know, regardless, I mean, they're saving him even though he was injured. But Kings on back-to-backs just scares me way too much. They've only covered in 30% of the games when they're on back-to-backs. Now, the Lakers have only covered in 30% of the games when they have a rest advantage, so they don't have necessarily the best track record there. And, you know, it's just a spot in which anyone can sit for the Lakers, right? Like, that's just how it works. So I'm going to lean Lakers. I don't love it. I just like it. In terms of a total pick here, I'll also lean towards the over. Kings are on a back-to-back. They should have some tired legs here. And hopefully the Lakers, you know, there's a vibe that goes around when that Lakers team starts to get going and start scoring. Hopefully that comes true here as well. They've played twice this season. They scored 235 and then 250. So both on either side of this one, but you'll notice one of those games was a lot higher than this line. So hoping to do something like that again, but they've scored 120 plus in 3 straight games here. And the Kings, I don't know what they'll do against Milwaukee, but the defense hasn't been great either. So I do think that, you know, the over is in play. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. I will say, like, I apologize, but also hope you understand why we're doing this video early. Otherwise, you'd have no NBA video today, and that is just, I pride myself on, like, the grind and the consistency, and that's not really something that I would want to happen. Like, we might miss videos here and there, but, like, I'm still at the place right now, right? Like, I could still get this video done. If something happens while we're on vacation and I don't have access and can't do it, that's out of my control. But right now, this is in my control. I'm able to stay up late, do this video, wake up super early in the morning. That is all within my control, so I figured it'd just be an excuse not to do it. So hopefully you guys respect that, and I know there's some information missing from this video and that type of thing, like the recap, which kind of looking like a decent night. I mean, we do still have some pending plays, but hopefully that's the case. And like the ride of the day, all that stuff. But hopefully we can kind of try and backtrack and play catch up as the week progresses. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Hope you guys did enjoy, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. It'll probably look a lot different, all right? Peace out.